5. This week I'm reviewing Baz Luhrmann's interpretation of the classic, The Great Gatsby. I put it in air quotes because, like most American school children, I was forced to read this and I found it incredibly boring. I really tried to understand why it was so great, and maybe if I read it again today I would, but as a school child I did not. And then I saw the Robert Redford version of the movie afterwards and found that even more boring than the book. So I was excited to see this version because it's a Baz Luhrmann production, which means a lot of flair, a lot of great visuals, a lot of modern music, and only one additional Kinsey point. The movie, if you've seen the commercials, obviously you realize it has plenty of Jay-Z on the soundtrack, that's the way you make the Roaring '20s even more exciting. You add hip-hop to the film. It's a standard Hollywood practice. The movie stars Leonardo DiCaprio as Gatsby, and I'm not going to go into the plot. You probably know it, or maybe you don't, but who gives a shit? What I want to talk about is that there were two women who went to the theater dressed in Roaring '20s garb for the 10 p.m. show last night, and that's it. I know I railed against the nerds last week, but now we're doing this. Now we're dressing for any movie, just any movie. We're going to dress up like whatever it is. I mean, Star Trek opens next week. That's next week's review, so I assume there's going to be a lot of people dressed as Trekkies, and I can only hope that a sinkhole opens underneath those theaters. But it's got to stop. Like the nerd culture, the ability to just embarrass yourself and have it be cool or have it be okay, has to stop. And I almost said something to the women, except one of them was very attractive, so I let her slide. That was it. So I do have a bit of a double standard. I liked the movie. It drags a little bit. It's 2 hours and 20 minutes, and it felt like 3 hours. I'm not going to lie. It felt very long. About 70% through the movie, there just came a stretch where it was like, okay, this has to wrap up at some point. But I thought visually, it's amazing looking. I saw it in 3D, which I usually don't do, but this movie was actually made for 3D, not just one of those bullshit Clash of the Titans upgrades where they try to rail you for an extra $4. Visually, it's great. It was more engaging than I remember from the original movie, and certainly from the book. The performances are good. There's just one thing where the movie sort of seems, in the first half of the movie, it seems to have a very strong commitment to talking like a movie from the 1930s, 1920s, like that kind of delivery and kind of hamminess, and that's intentional. But for the second half of the movie, it kind of loses that, and I don't know if that was intentional because the tone of the movie gets more serious, or if that was just a lapse and they were just committed to writing that way early on and then got into, you know, in a slight way it felt like different writers were having input into the first and second halves of the movie. Other than that, though, I enjoyed it and I was pleasantly surprised. It's if you want to see something visually nice that feels like a little bit of a different era until you hear Jay-Z blaring on the soundtrack, I would recommend going to see it. Movies are a visual medium, and this is visually pretty impressive, and the performances are good. So I'll give it a B+. That's a high B+. I know I don't even know where the reviews are on this movie, but I'm giving it a B+. Blame me if you don't like it, but I think you might be surprised. So that's it. Like I said, next week I'm reviewing Star Trek. I don't know if I can see a late show of Star Trek because there's just going to be so many fucking geeks there that I just might start throwing sealed water bottles at them. So that's it. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great week. Talk to you next Friday.
We wanna get the feeling.